We are one day away from a pivotal Game 3 and then LDS. Walker Buehler is ready to go. We'll see if his stuff is ready to go. Talk about that. Talk about the offense needing to show up and a little more fallout from the Manny Machado debacle. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are joining us live Monday evening on this off day. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. That guy next to me is my co-host, Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. And Vince, we had an off day today, probably a needed off day, I think, for an emotional reset for the fans, for a physical reset, obviously for Freddie Freeman. Mookie Betts spent a lot of time in the batting cage. Everybody probably needed this day off a little bit. I know for me, emotionally, I was in a bad mood last night. And I think that I should probably apologize. I snapped at somebody in the chat. He did misrepresent my words, but I probably shouldn't have snapped at him the way I did. The reason I was sensitive to the phrase, him saying that I say what if a lot, is because what if to me signifies, burying your head in the sand and playing an imagination game. What if the Dodgers won? And that's not what it was. Like, one of the things we talk about a lot on this show in wins and losses is the little moments in baseball games that make a huge difference. And Sunday's game had a couple of those moments. And so my main point was, that game was a lot closer than the 10-2 final score made it seem. There were key moments in the game where the game turned on. And in this case, they turned against the Dodgers. We saw plenty of games this year. The one that jumps immediately to mind is the game in Colorado when a non-call on a check swing that could have been called a strike. Rockies fans will tell you it should have been called a strike. I think it was very borderline. And then the next pitch, Teoscar Hernandez hits a go-ahead home run. That was a huge game. Little moments like that, and there were a few of those. So that was my point, but I probably shouldn't have been as grumpy about it. But the game sucked. In my defense, I was in a bad mood for a good reason, because that game yesterday sucked.
Yeah, honestly, I felt like I didn't want the day out. Like today, I just felt like, man, I wish the Dodgers were playing today just to get. I guess the game can be worse than it was in Game 2, but like it would be pretty hard to top that. So it's one of those where, like, man, I wish they were playing right now, but. Baseball is doing its thing in general. All the series are tied 1-1 for the first time in the division series era. So, in a year where everyone kind of said there's no real standout, no true, juggernaut team, at least it's proven itself correctly in a little bit of a form in sense of everyone being 1-1. Some people said that made them feel better about the Dodgers series. No other series has any bearing on how I feel about the Dodgers series, but and again, the Dodgers could be up 2-0 right now, and I would feel more confident than I do now, but not significantly. It'd be one of those where, like, man, they still got to win one, like, and you never know what's going to happen and everything else. And I think the full day off is one where you can talk yourself into a few different situations of positive things, negative things, and we'll just have to wait and see what exactly happens. But yeah, it was. I think last night. Like I said, before we talked about it and playing the Padres, and I said, I'm not scared of the Padres. It's more the thought of losing to them. And that's literally what it is. It's just annoying to lose to that team.
Yeah. The good news is it is tied 1-1, and, you're only as hot as your next day's starter, which, we said yesterday on paper, this pitching matchup, Walker Buehler against Michael King, definitely goes in favor of the Padres. But Walker Buehler, he talked to the media today, and he's ready for it. And that's if Walker Buehler struggles, it's not going to be because he's overwhelmed by the moment. my big concern, people get mad at me that I still believe Mookie Betts is going to be fine because I don't believe there's some magical playoff power. The flip side of that is I don't believe there's some magical playoff power. And so I'm worried about what version of Walker Buehler is going to show up. It's not going to be that he's overwhelmed by the moment. I'm just worried that the Walker Buehler whose stuff isn't great and whose command isn't great, who we saw a lot of this year, is going to show up. I told myself we did see versions of him where the stuff was pretty good and the command was pretty good. Definitely not peak Walker Buehler style, but there were games that he pitched this year that if he pitches like that, he can give the Dodgers a pretty good shot to win. But all we can do is cross our fingers and hope that version of Buehler shows up, right?
Yeah, it literally just give us what he did his last start against the Padres, which is, the 5 innings and the no runs. And that would be ideal. Obviously, it's hard to envision that being realistic just with the way the Padres is from the bat, with the way that Walker Buehler hasn't had strikeout stuff. But hey, Walker Buehler has proven to us a lot of times in October that he's a big game pitcher. And he kind of mentioned that, like, being a big game pitcher is what he cares about. That's the calling card that he does have. And as a Dodger fan, the biggest game of the season we saw Buehler pitch, he pitched relatively well. And if he can give the Dodgers a repeat of that performance or somewhere in that general vicinity, then I do think the offense is – Darvish has their number. He has so many pitches. I think the Dodgers – that's what makes it tough for them, is that you can't really focus on anything, and you have to hope that he's off on a couple pitches in order to kind of nail things down. But I do think that against other pitchers where they don't have 7 pitches, they're able to, try and nail things down a little bit more. And I think they'll put up some runs.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about the offense in the next segment. But yeah, Buehler doesn't need to throw a complete game shutout. That would be nice. The chances are the Dodgers aren't going to win this game 1-0. But, if the offense shows up, like we'll talk about in the next segment, I think a 6-3 win is absolutely a possibility. And Walker Buehler, we've definitely seen versions of Walker Buehler this year, including recently, that are more than capable of going 5 innings and allowing 3 runs, which, is basically what Jack Flaherty almost did. If we got exactly Flaherty's start from Buehler tomorrow, I'd feel pretty good about that, because like we said many times, it's going to be up to the offense really to get the job done. And I'd feel great about Buehler getting into the 6th inning and only giving up 3 or 4 runs.
And one of the things in the broadcast of one of the AL games today, I think might have been the first game, Guardians, Tigers, or either one, whatever. They were mentioning how with the day off yesterday and the day off tomorrow, it was basically treated as a winner go home game type deal where you use everybody. I think the Dodgers are not in a winner go home literally, but I do think it's one of those where with the day off yesterday, it's all hands on deck. And if Walker Buehler has a short leash and comes out in the 2nd inning, the Dodgers are going to deploy all the arms and try to get the rest of the 20-some or 18-some outs, whatever it is, that way, and not worry about the next game until the next game. And, realistically, that's the way it has to go. I do think with the pitching staff, just the way it is, we've seen the hook be quick with Yamamoto. Maybe he could have gone another inning, but at that point you were in a game. And if the Dodgers are in a game and Walker Buehler is struggling a little bit, I think they'll pull him. And if not, I think after 2 times through a lineup, it might be like a hitter by hitter basis, unless it's somehow vintage Walker Buehler and he's out there striking everybody out, and then you can, take a little bit more leeway.
Yeah. Would you give any consideration to using an opener with Buehler on the mound? Just because I was thinking about the only time the logic behind the opener is the only time you can guarantee getting the best part of the Padres lineup in a close game is the 1st inning. And so, we know Blake Trinan has those guys' number. Michael Kopech, maybe one of those guys. Would you think about, just to try to get that momentum? Obviously, you're on the road, so hopefully the Dodgers can already have a lead by the time the Padres bat. But, would you think about that just to get momentum on the pitching side?
I mean, I've been advocating for, or not on the pod, I don't think, but I've told a few people, that 1st inning is just so brutal, and it's been brutal for a while now. And I wouldn't mind an opener, but it's one of those where, who do you go with? Do you go with one of your top arms like a Blake Trinan, or a Michael Kopech in the first inning to ensure that you get them facing the top guys? Or, do you try to sneak by with the Bruiser or Gratterall and then, maybe they soft contact their way into it? It's a lot of different moving parts, but I 100% would be on board with an opener for the next 2 games, because you're not hurt. If you hurt Walker Buehler's feelings, too bad. He's this is the last year of his contract. So if he wants to go pitch somewhere else because he's hurt by that, and that would be his prerogative. But I would be fine with that if that's the way they go.
Yeah. So we mentioned that it's going to be up to the offense to get the job done. Probably we're going to come back in a minute, talk a little bit about the offense, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, a lot more. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The postseason is here, and if you are thinking about following your favorite team across the country this October, well, sorry, the Padres don't let you go to a game of their stadium, so no point going there. But maybe the next round, if you want to explore some other U.S. city, either Philadelphia or New York. Yes, we're talking about those other team cities on Booking.com with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in a rival team city. Look, if a city has a big league team, it also has great places to stay. I have personally booked great hotels in nearly every MLB city in America, and Booking.com makes that so much easier. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your October travel this MLB postseason. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. We are back. Thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks to our everydayers. Thanks to those of you who are with us live. Remember, please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us, one-on-one conversations. It's a lot of fun, so check that out. Also, check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Sports LA is where you can find the Locked On Dodgers postcast hosted by Pete Fox after almost every Dodger game. So check that out. Also, be sure to catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. And make your second listen Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. Does a really good job covering all of Major League Baseball. So the Dodgers offense, obviously, they weren't going to win a game no matter how well Jack Flaherty had pitched yesterday, scoring 2 runs. It's just not realistic. The Dodgers are going to have to score more than that. And that's something we knew coming into this postseason, that it was going to be about the Dodgers scoring. It's why the Dodgers lost last year against the D-backs, because they didn't hit. It's why they lost the year before that against the Padres, because they didn't hit. And, obviously it's not as simple as, just hit better, because the other team has good pitchers who are trying to get you out. And the Padres have very good pitching. But we saw in game 1, that good pitching can be got to. And the Dodgers have a very, very good offense that just needs to show it. And 2 of the big keys to that, Freddie Freeman, we don't know if he's going to play. He came out early of the game on Sunday. Dave Roberts said today that it's still unknown. And so I don't know. What's your gut feeling? Do you think that Freddie's playing tomorrow, Vince?
Yeah, probably. Just he's going to do whatever he can to play. I don't know if that means he'll play the whole game, though.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. He'll be in the starting lineup and give as much as he can, and hopefully get a big lead and take the rest of the game off. We talked yesterday. It's not, you factor in how many at bats is it, and how much better is he than Kike? One player doesn't make a huge difference, but one player can make a big difference in any given moment. We've seen Kike be the one making that difference in postseason moments in the past. So, there's always a chance of that. Mookie Betts is probably the other big name on a lot of people's minds. I've seen Mookie's name in the chat here several times tonight. Seems to be mostly people trying to bait me into yelling at the commenters again, but I'm not going to do it, guys, no matter how many dumb things you say about Mookie. I just, we saw a report that Mookie was taking hundreds of swings again today. Somebody said, "Are you trying to swing your way out of a slump?" And he said, "If there's another way, how to get us out of a slump, let me know." for me, the thing that bothers me the most is people thinking Mookie doesn't care. Like, it's like, I don't know why people feel a need to project onto other people, try to play armchair psychologist or internet psychologist or whatever. Like, and anytime the whole team, anytime somebody struggled, we got a message in our insider group that the team just looks lackadaisical. That's because they weren't hitting well. That's why they look that way. It's the effect, not the cause. The reason they look lackadaisical is because they're not hitting well. It's not why they're not hitting well. And Mookie, like, you can't be so good at so many things without being really, really committed to being good at a lot of things. Like, Mookie cares very much about his craft. That's part that bothers me. Because I don't believe in postseason superpowers, I think Mookie Betts is a great hitter, which means I still assume that he's very likely to get a couple of hits tomorrow.
Yeah, it's one of those where there's certain players, if you're a starter, you're going to be a starter through the postseason. Like, no one's really struggled enough in the past to, like, legitimately, if they're a legit starter, if they're a guy that's maybe on the bubble or a platoon guy, maybe so. But, a superstar MVP candidate like Mookie Betts, nothing's going to change. So for me, it's one of those where, what benefit are we getting out of continuing to bring up things that don't matter in that next at bat? Like, if there's always that next at bat. Now, if we get to the end of the season and there's a bunch of stuff going on, or, the Dodgers don't win it all, and, there's a lot of different numbers that you can look into, okay, then yeah. But in the moment, like, it's all Cody Bellinger. Like, I think they showed stats today during Aaron Judge's at bat about strikeout percentage in the postseason, and Judge was at the top of it, and Cody Bellinger's on that list. And if you ask most Dodger fans about Cody Bellinger's playoff and how he was, I bet you most of them would have positive thoughts about it because you remember the big moments. And I think that's where the hope and everything that comes with, being more optimistic is that you're going to have those big moments. If Mookie, Freddie, whoever went one for a series, but that one home run was a walk-off home run or a game-winning hit, overall, you're going to feel pretty good at the end of that series because, one, you won the series, and two, you're going to remember that hit. So I think it's one of those where all these guys, all the offense can come together, and hopefully it all comes at the same time. But if not, there's enough guys in this lineup to where here and there you guys can just put your own little stamp on this series and get to the end of it.
Yeah, I always think of Corey Seager when we're talking about this because, Seager obviously was awesome in the 2020 World Series, awesome in the 2023 World Series. Before the 2020 World Series, Corey Seager's postseason OPS was 605. He had a 203 batting average in the postseason. He struck out 41 times in 131 plate appearances. Corey Seager was a very bad postseason player. And then 2020 happened, and he had a great postseason. And then he had another great postseason and another great postseason. Barry Bonds was terrible in the postseason until he was good. There's so many examples of people who just were really bad in the postseason. And, you mentioned Cody Bellinger, like, so bad in 2017 and struggling. I remember 2018 when talking to Cody's dad during game 4 of the NLCS against the Brewers and him saying, yeah, his mechanics are just all effed up right now. And then an hour and a half later, Cody gets the walk-off hit in the 13th inning or whatever of that game. Even that, though, wasn't a great hit, but it was a walk-off hit. Cody, did he win MVP of that series? I feel like Cody Bellinger won MVP of that series, even though he actually didn't have a very good season.
NLCS?
2018 NLCS.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm just looking because, 2018 NLCS MVP, he batted 200 with a 591 OPS in that series. And yet he won the MVP because the hits that he got, like to your point, were the big hits. And so we don't need Mookie necessarily to be the greatest player in the world. But Mookie is going to get some hits if he gets enough opportunities. And that's, we know they have at least 2 games left. Hopefully 2 games in this series, and then, a lot more games later this postseason. That's what I'm hoping for. But that's what we need from Mookie is to just get a couple hits. And I think that, I still just think it's more likely than not.
Again, it's going to come down to, you hope that talent outplays everything when it comes to your superstars, and we've seen the superstars on the other team be good, and we've seen them not be good. Machado for everything. We remember the home run, but overall, like, his numbers in the postseason aren't that great. But all we can remember, well, on the field stuff is just that big home run in the first game, and the Dodgers ended up winning that game. So like it's one of those things, and he ended up making the last out of that game. So like there's different things where you can always pinpoint where it's at or what's good or what's not. But again, everything about the past doesn't matter. It's only what you do moving forward, and hopefully the Dodgers put their best foot forward, and we can talk more positively about the offensive display.
Yeah, and you mentioned Manny Machado striking out to end game one. He struck out on a pitch that was so far outside. If it had been a left-handed hitter, Machado would have accused the pitcher of throwing at him. That's how bad a pitch that was. And speaking of Machado being a crybaby, there was more that we found out about that whole situation from Sunday's game today. So we're going to dig into that a little bit when we come back. So thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And maybe you are an NFL fan, but you're also focusing on the Major League Baseball playoffs like maybe you ought to be. You can bet on that stuff too. For example, right now the Dodgers are plus 128 underdogs against the Padres on Tuesday. So that's an easy win for you. Dodgers are obviously going to win. Place your $5 bet. You don't even have to win, but you will with this one. But place a $5 bet for the Dodgers to win. You'll make a little money on that, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets. So you can feel pretty good about that. The other games I'm looking at, the Phillies Phillies and Mets are close. Mets are minus 104, Phillies are minus 112. So I guess technically that means the Phillies are favored, but not by very much. So a lot of options there. So again, just place a $5 bet over at FanDuel.com. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. I love sports. I love concerts. I love comedy shows. The thing they all have in common is buying tickets. And that means the other thing they have in common is you can find the best price on Game Time. Game Time even has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You also have the option of turning on all-in pricing, which will show you the total prices up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And with the Game Time guarantee, you'll always get the lowest price, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to your favorite events with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Hey, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. I especially want to thank the Padre fans in the chat. Thank you, because guess what? Your stats count the same as everybody else's, so thanks for the views. You are helping us out. There is a Locked On Padres show. Javi does a pretty good job over there, but I know some of you would rather be over here being little brothers, and we appreciate you here, whether they appreciate you there or not. So thanks for being here with us. Thanks for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Remember, join subtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube, and check out the Dodgers on SiriusXM and the SXM app. So we found out a few things after we recorded last night. Manny Machado stated very clearly to the media that he did believe that Jack Flaherty hit Fernando Tatis intentionally, which I don't know how to put this in a nice way, so I'm going to put it in the mean way. It's a stupid thing to think. There is no reason why Jack Flaherty would throw at Tatis there. Flaherty explained it pretty clearly. I wasn't going to leave a pitch out over the plate to Tatis. He's hitting me well. And Tatis lunges over the plate more than anybody. And so you got to pitch him inside to keep him off the plate to set up other pitches. That's what Flaherty was trying to do. The pitch ran in on him. Tatis sitting out the way, it hit him. It's baseball. There's a reason that there's a penalty affixed to getting hit by a pitch, you get to go to first base. That's the penalty. Everything else, you're just being a crybaby. So, but Machado absolutely believes it was intentional. He's an idiot. And then the next inning, after the warm-ups, there was a ball ready to be put out of play, and Machado chucked it at the Dodgers dugout. There was video of it that surfaced today that the Dodgers have submitted to Major League Baseball. To be clear, my interpretation of the video definitely wasn't intended to injure anyone, but seemed pretty clearly intended to disrespect some people, don't you think?
Yeah, what I said on Twitter was that it was more than a casual toss towards or getting the ball out of play. And that's literally what it was. It was more than a casual toss. Like the guys usually just, rainbow them over, whatever, or they make eye contact with whoever they're tossing the ball to in the dugout, and they go about it that way. This one wasn't that way. I don't know. To me, it's a non-issue. I don't know if there was different. Well, obviously, there's different feelings in the Dodgers. They submitted the video reportedly to MLB to check it out since it wasn't on the Fox cameras. But to me, it's just like, to me personally, it's why continue to make this something when you just need to go win on the field? Like, there's nothing good that can be accomplished from this. It's just a matter of go play and win. Like there's no benefit to it. MLB's not going to spend Manny Machado for whatever, for throwing it a little bit harder than normal over there towards the plate. Dave Roberts used a little bit more stronger words than maybe I would have used. But again, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the dugout. We have video. It doesn't look egregious, but it does look more than what it is. And when it is Manny Machado, it might be just more than what it is.
Yeah. And like I said last night, I said on Twitter, Manny Machado plays with a chip on his shoulder. He always has. And most of the time that chip is manufactured in his brain. And that's what works for him, or works as well as anything. That I saw somebody tell me today, it's that will to win. Look, Manny was on those 2018 Dodgers. They didn't win the World Series. Manny played well for the most part, also struck out to end the World Series. It wasn't his fault, but he doesn't have magic superpowers. He likes to have that chip on his shoulder. Jurickson Profar seems to be the same kind of guy. A lot of people were mad at me in the comments on YouTube for having the nerve to say Jurickson Profar with his negative 2.7 UZR, negative 7 outs above average, and negative 6 defensive runs saved is a bad defensive outfielder. They said the eye test works for them. So, okay, he's a bad outfielder who made a good play. But those guys need that emotional, the whole world is against us. That's how they get themselves fired up. And maybe it works for them. We'll see. They haven't won a World Series yet, which, from what I understand, is the only thing that matters in the whole world. It's weak. It's like you said, I don't really care. It's for a guy like Machado, who has been in the league for a decade, you would think that he at some point would think, maybe I should start respecting my opponents. Don't have to do a podcast with them, but basic respect. And you go back to, from when he was a rookie, throwing bats at Josh Donaldson, spiking Dustin Pedroia, like just incident after, obviously the one in 2018 in the NLCS when he was on the Dodgers, kicking, what's his name? Jesus
Aguilar.
Jesus Aguilar, kicking him, like just one thing after another. And at some point, man, he's got to look in the mirror and say, what is the common denominator? Every time there's a whiny crybaby on the field, he looks like me. Oh, it's me every freaking time. It's just, and again, like we said last night, no excuse for Dodger fans throwing things onto the field. But as far as the things that happened between the players yesterday, it was 100% the fault of Manny Machado and Jurickson Profar being crybabies, thinking that Jack Flaherty is throwing at Fernando Tatis to lead off an inning in a close game, and throwing his two-seamer instead of his four-seamer. I have one fastball that's 91 miles an hour, one that's 95 miles an hour. Which one should I throw at this guy? The straight one that goes harder, or the softer one that I can't control as well? Yes, come on, guys.
Yeah, for Jack Flaherty, who wasn't doing the best at getting ahead in the count, he was ahead in the count when he hit Tatis. So he might have been able to do it anywhere else, but. Maybe, we've talked about, it is interesting how we've talked about Roberts and the different wording he's used, and if it's lip service or actual things that he truly believes, with the Dodgers having an edge and being angry and all this other stuff and blah blah blah. And while I don't think they would go to the extent of all this hoopla over this thing, but it's one of those where it's just like, I don't know, man. It's getting it's a lot of talking at this point, and a lot of other things that have nothing to do with the play on the field. And ultimately, that's all this is going to matter, is the play on the field. Like, the Dodgers are going to win or the Dodgers are going to lose, and all this other stuff's not going to really matter at the end of the day. But yeah, it's one of those where it's why, if the Dodgers were playing another team, it'd be a little bit like 1-1, but we wouldn't be talking about a whole bunch of other things that happen. We'd be talking about, the stuff like, what's Walker Buehler going to do, and what are the Dodgers going to do, and how are they going to attack, whoever's starting on the mound. So it's a little bit different. I like the in the moment rivalry. I know Petco's going to be rocking. I was there in 2022, and it was loud, and it was a fun environment as a baseball fan to be at. It wasn't fun when the Dodgers were losing, as someone who is a fan of the Dodgers, but as an environment in baseball in the postseason, and I've been to a lot of postseason environments, it was up there. And if the Dodgers, if they do need something to light a fire, that crowd, everything that's happened so far, the quote unquote disrespect that Dave Roberts called it, maybe that's the thing that fuels them. And if it is, I don't think I'm gonna acknowledge it in the future as, the Dodgers need to always do this. But if that's what it happens and that's what ends up being, then cool.
Yeah, there are reports. Somebody mentioned it here. The news report while we've been talking, that Walker Buehler was robbed at Santa Anita Racetrack today. His $100,000 watch was stolen. So maybe that'll fire him up. Obviously not related to the series at all. I am gonna call out one person in the comments, but don't worry, it's just a Padre fan. He says, the same fans that stabbed a Giants fan to death? Nope. The guy who got stabbed to death was a Dodger fan at the Giants stadium. But thanks for playing, Ace J. And again, your stats count the same as the smart people's stats. I'm looking forward to the game. It's a very pivotal game. Honestly, if the Dodgers can win this game, they are right back in. Then they just need to win one of the next two. As depressing as yesterday was, we are still one game away from being back in the driver's seat. Somebody has to win on Tuesday, and the Dodgers, if it can be them, then they are in control and have a really good shot of moving on to the NLCS.
Yeah, I'm like, again, it's all going to come down to what's on the field, and at this point, that's all I can wait for, is to see what happens on the field.
Yep. You got anything else for today?
No, let's go Dodgers.
All right, we will be back tomorrow night, 40 minutes after the game ends. Hopefully, it'll be a happy episode. Hopefully, the Padres trolls will be too sad to be here in our chat. But hey, either way, hope they come here sad and say sad things, then we'll make fun of that. But either way, we will be here with you 40 minutes after the game ends. So thank you for being here with us live. Thanks for making us your first listen. Remember, you can become everydayer by watching or listening every weekday morning. And you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.